That wasn't the word we
now
wanted.
we are live. All right. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. This is Tom Sellers with my co-host, Robbie Robinson, and we are not done yet, folks. Robbie, how are you today?
I'm feeling as I usually do. I'm fired up and pissed off at cancer today.
All right. Well, in that vein, we got some things we can talk about. Several of you may have over the past week seen some rather touching posts and tributes to our friend and one of the gentlemen who began this radio station and gave us this platform to talk to you on for the better part of the last 2 years. And we have Coach Papa, who is also one of those people that began this radio station. And he also knew Ron a little bit better than some of us did. I know they visited several times. So we're going to kind of start things out today. We're going to talk about our friend Ron Hostry. Many of you may have, who've listened to the station, known him as Rancher Ron. A heck of a guy if you listen to him, even if you never met him. If you listen to some of his East Texas wisdom, if you did have the opportunity to meet him and visit with him, I did a couple of years back. And quite frankly, was just not a more genuine guy on the planet, my estimation. So without any further ado by me, Coach, how you doing today?
A doo-doo?
A doo-doo.
I'm doing great. Life is good. I've had an opportunity to work out this morning and realize why I don't like to take my car into dealerships to be serviced.
Physically, or are you just thinking about stuff too much, working out?
No, Naaman had me on the bench this morning. I had a PR. Got bench 205 this morning, so it was a positive morning. Met my new best friend while waiting for my old to be changed. His name's Walt. I said he's checking out today or checking into the show today, so he'll be on 21.6 at the app. Cool. Got it loaded on his phone and showed him how to listen. So Walt, if you're out there, really appreciated our chat this morning. He is a cancer survivor as well, so we had a little bit of a chat about his journey. So.
Yeah, no matter where you're at, you can download the 21.6 The Net app on either iPhone or Android. So no excuses not to be listening to us.
Well, as you mentioned, we started out as two bald guys at a microphone, and Kent and I were meeting for the first time, and Ron Hostry is one of these guys that he was just a storyteller. He was from Texas. He was a great storyteller, and we envisioned him having a 15-minute spot on the radio show. So we called Ron from Kent's office. He was at BMO Harris Bank at that time, and he got on the phone with us. I introduced the two of them, and the first thing he said was, do you mind if we pray first? And, that Kent was like, absolutely. Yeah. So there's an instant bond. So he came on for the first 15-minute show and never left. He was excited. We were excited. So throughout our tenure with 101.3 FM over in WHIW in Harvard, he was there every Monday morning for 3 hours. When we left WHIW and launched 21.6 The Net, Kent and I got to thinking, wow, if it's so good on Mondays, maybe we should go 5 days a week. And Ron was the far more intelligent of the group. He said, I'll join you on Monday and Thursday. And Kent and I put a two-hour show together for daily for about 4 or 5 weeks. And one day we walked in and, got the bags under our eyes and we're running out of guests. We're running out of topics.
What are we going to talk about now?
And we said, this isn't such a great idea. As the process kept going in 21.6, The Net moved to our current studio here high above the Tanyan building in just a little south of McHenry, Illinois. I began to realize that, the radio wasn't necessarily the place I wanted to be all the time. I like being out live and on stage. Yeah. And so Two Bald Guys at a Microphone ended its run just a little over a year ago. And I went back out on the live stage. And this year I've done a little over 70 speaking engagements in 6 different states. And
I want you to elaborate on that a little bit. That's like people that do that. They're like my idols. my idea of dying at work is falling off the stage, hitting my head, laughing at one of my own jokes so bad. It's the only way I want to die at work.
Well, here's the fun. It is over glorified. the airplanes, I'd never experienced the hotels, the rental cars. One of the things with Hertz, because I've been renting so many cars so close together, they bumped me up and upgraded. And I was flying to Houston, then driving to Lafayette, Louisiana, in Lafayette for 2 days, driving back to Houston. And they upgraded me to the Jeep Rubicon, basically
Well, that's
the
nice.
CJ7,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, all right, I'll take that. And so I got to the edge of Houston. I pulled over into a gas station. I pulled the tops off. So, I'm going to cruise in style. And I didn't go 10 miles before the clouds opened up. And fortunately, I got under an overpass quick enough where I didn't drench the inside of this Jeep. And then I had to figure out how to put the tops back on. It was taking it off was easy.
And it's the funniest thing in that part of the country, because I lived there for a short period of time. It will be sunny and 140 degrees, and out of nowhere, it starts pouring rain for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and it was a torrential downpour as well.
Okay.
Was that 10 down there? It runs in the south, like from Louisiana.
Yep.
Yeah, we traveled out a couple of times to visit my daughter in Houston, and you could just see those storms. Like you said, nice, beautiful day, and all of a sudden they just come running off that ocean and just start dumping on you.
We're showing live
And
on the screen here.
On the airport, there was a time when I was flying from Midland. From Calumet, Oklahoma City to Midland, Texas. And I wasn't going to be able to get to the airport until 6 o'clock. If I could have got the 2 o'clock flight, I would be in Midland by 6 o'clock. If I didn't get till the 3 o'clock flight, I didn't get to Midland until 11 o'clock at night. And it was because of the length of the layover in Houston. Yeah. Well, I happened to get there early enough to catch the 2 o'clock flight. So I got myself on a standby. They got me on the plane, the very last seat on the plane, and went to Houston. Now I had a 25-minute layover in Houston. In Houston, I had to get off of gate 27 and go to gate 5, which is about a half mile away.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that going, my Lord, okay, I'm going to be running through the airport. So I took the very front seat of the aircraft. On Southwest, you get to choose your own seat. So I got off and I'm cruising. I get down to gate 5. There's nobody there. I went back and looked, and they had changed it while we were in the air from gate 5 to gate 47. Gate 47. Well, when I looked at the airport map, that's the other way.
It sounds like it's about all the way on the other side.
So I'm running back, and I'm going down this aisleway, and 37, 39, all the odd numbers are on this side. And I get up, and they're loading the aircraft. I'm like, oh, I made it just in time. So I go, I'm in the A group. So I pass all these people. I get up to front only to find them at gate 49 instead of gate 47. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the other one. It was tucked in behind the shopping center. So now I'm running down there, and this little curly-headed kid said, I suppose you're Mr. Stewart. You're waiting on me, huh?
What tells you that?
One seat left. It was a jump seat. I was by a guy named Raul Ochoa. Imagine me making a new friend on an airplane.
Imagine that.
And we landed. Make a long story short, my next flight got canceled. I had to spend an extra night in Midland. I called Raul up. He took me out to dinner at a country club. I had the best ribeye that I've had in a very long time, and an opportunity to speak for his company this year. So he said, everything worked out, but it was a lot more than I had bargained for. And it's something occasionally. It's an adventure, but it's not the way I'd want to live my life constantly.
Yeah, especially where none of us sitting here are exactly what they would call spring chickens anymore.
I resemble that remark.
Exactly. And that traveling's got to be a little more comfortable and not as quite fast paced. But I admire what you do. They call you Coach Papa, and explain a little bit of why that and why you chose that.
I had coached soccer for a very long time. I was a head soccer coach at Johnsburg High School. I had stepped away from soccer to pursue my career. I figured it was time for me to grow up. That hasn't worked out so well, by the way.
I'm kind of enjoying this once a man, twice a child thing it talks about in the Bible myself.
And so every time I go by a soccer field or a football field, any sport, I would stop and watch. My grandson turned 6, and my daughter put him on a soccer team, and it was assumed that I was part of the package. So I went and we started coaching his his little soccer team, which hadn't won a game in their spring session. We're coming up on or in their fall session. I went to the coach, and his name was.
I'm not sure if we are having technical difficulties or not. Please continue.
Yeah.
Let me,
we had started. I went to his coach, and I said, "Look, I'm a former high school varsity coach and a nationally licensed coach.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit over there and talk about you, or I can
help if you want.
I can help you out." So he said, "Please help." So I did, and we took that little team that hadn't won a game in the fall and went undefeated in the spring. Now, the British guys came up and they said, "Hey, look, you've done this before," and they offered me a position. Now, my grandson called me Papa, so all the other kids just
started calling you that,
Coach Papa. Well, I went for my next level licensing down in on Randall Road, a little bit south of Algonquin, and they said, "If you have a nickname when we call you, give us your nickname." You know, I said, "Well, they just call me Coach Papa."
Yeah, that's neat.
And that's where it's like today. The hierarchy of the state of Illinois club soccer, they only know me as Coach Papa. If they said, "Is Coach Tim Stewart here?" they would know.
Who's that?
Later on, people started inviting me to coach them in business and other things, and the Coach Papa world just came about.
Yeah.
Luke Zoltmulder, the sticker dude, he plastered my car with Coach Papa all over the outside
saw that
of
when
it.
it pulled in. It's cool.
And Coach Papa was born. So everything I do today falls under the
umbrella
setting of Coach Papa. But it all started.
And you can go to coachpapa.com and find out a little bit more about Coach Papa himself if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
When you do the speaking engagements, so what are you trying to get? What message are you taking to these folks when you speak to these businesses and organizations?
Well, I talk a lot about leadership and relationship building. Robbie, I talked about the guy when I got on the plane had his wedding ring on his thumb. And I said, "Sir, I couldn't help but notice you got your wedding ring on the wrong finger." He said, "Son, I married the wrong woman." I encourage people to research the relationships. There's some that you're stuck by. We all have those people in our lives who are drainers, and they drain us, and they all have those who give us energy and raise our level of energy. And what I try to be is somebody who raises the level of energy in the room. Now, sometimes those people are in your family, and you're stuck with them whether you want to be or not.
Right.
And you have to be careful. There's so many negative people in the world. So today, we bring the Reboot Process. The Reboot, it's an acronym, and the R stands for recognize the need to make some changes in your life. The E is about educating yourself on how and who can help you make those changes. No major change can be made without a mentor coach in your life.
Yeah.
The B is about creating a belief system. The first O is update the operating system. The second O is orchestrate your life. Stop letting life orchestrate you. And this is about leadership. But more importantly, we talk about self-leadership. When I became an entrepreneur, I had a staff of 3, me, myself, and I. And those other 2 guys weren't listening very well.
They didn't like you, huh?
They didn't like me at all some days. So self-leadership is about learning to treat yourself as a subordinate while treating yourself as your boss. It's very easy when nobody's looking to put on Words with Friends or that slot machine where you're winning 3 billion fake coins. It's creating some dopamine when you get the win, but it's actually counterproductive. The definition of counterproductive. That's an accountant who does something worthwhile. And the whole idea is learning to lead yourself. And then
starts there, don't it?
Right. The T in Reboot is about testing. Are the changes taking effect? Are they working? I've got a keynote presentation coming up for the Department of Corrections in Bloomington, Illinois. Their annual event. And at the event, I'll be bringing this Reboot to them with the goal of getting into prisons and jails throughout, because there'll be representatives from every jail and prison in the state of Illinois at this meeting, with the idea that who needs a reboot? Well, we all need a reboot.
Yes.
So we might need a soft reboot, unplug it, plug it back in, or we might need to just clear the whole thing out and start from scratch.
Over.
I was
learning how to think about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, and cancer, just to kind of bring it back, is a reboot.
Oh yeah. It makes people stop and go, Is this where I want to be heading? Is this what I want to be doing?
Right. And when we do that, are we able to accomplish the things we want to accomplish?
Yeah.
So
how we doing, guys?
Thanks, Peter. Well, we had some technical difficulties, so we had to bring in a professional. Y'all know I'm not. So Peter was kind enough to get us online. So if you are still listening to us and couldn't figure out where to find us, we are here. So jump in, let us know what you're thinking. In relation to what Coach was talking about, and Coach and I work closely together. He actually is one of my mentors. The things he's bringing to the forefront here when he's working with people, when he's speaking, things like that. We all need these things. It's funny, and I say this, and I probably said it to Coach myself. When you are in the middle of the storm, everything that you do makes sense.
Yeah.
even though when you're doing it, you're like, this isn't working, but it makes sense because you need a set of objective eyes looking in to find out where the eye of the storm is, not the part that you're involved in.
Yeah, and sometimes that's hard to do with yourself.
Yep.
And learning to do that and be objective to what you are or are not doing is hard sometimes for people to face that in themselves, but you can't be a benefit to somebody else if you don't understand who you are yourself.
Right. And one of the things that we probably don't spend enough time on, I know I sure didn't for a lot of years, is, one of the most dangerous things that we can say in business right now is this is the way we've always done it.
Oh, yeah.
However, most of us who've been around more than a couple of weeks, well, everybody here, we grew up doing things a certain way. And they were successful depending on what you define as success.
Right. How much or how little.
Right. So what we end up finding ourselves doing, at least I am guilty of this, is like, well, Tom, did you try doing this? Well, no. This is how I grew up doing it. This works. And that is the worst argument you can have with yourself.
Yeah. I had good example of that. I was working at a furniture store and a lady pulls around back at the warehouse and I'm going to put this table in her car for her. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm turning it every way I can think of. I'm trying to get it in the back seat. And she's like, well, I'm like, it's okay, ma'am. I got this. I'll take care of it for you. I've done this a few times and I'm turning every way I can. And finally she goes, well, if you just do like this, maybe, and we turn it and the thing slid right into the back seat. And I'm like, okay, thank you, ma'am, for that little lesson in humility. When you think you know everything is when you probably know the least.
Well, that's there's an old saying. It's what I learned after I knew everything that made the most difference.
Yes.
And as a coach today, I've just started reading a new book.
Yeah.
Called Every Moment Matters. Every Moment Matters is by John O'Sullivan. And while it's a book designed for athletic coaching, the lessons really impact. And, Thomas got these in our last couple of meetings. One of the things he talks about is an IPR, an immediate positive response. And so many times we get into a situation. Father Paul over at Holy Apostles was telling the story the other day that another priest invited him to go to Hawaii and paid for his tickets. So he's like, yeah, I'll go. Part of the trip, they were going over to, there's still an active leper colony in Hawaii. And it was a 12-mile boat ride across the ocean over to this other island. And the wind's whipping through, had the boat rocking side to side as they're going. He said there's already 10 or 12 people losing it over the back of the boat. And he's turning kind of green around the gills. And he looked over, and here's a priest who invited him standing in the middle of the boat eating a bag of popcorn. He's like, what's wrong with you? He says, come on over here. He got over by him. He says, did you notice anything? He goes, yeah, it's not quite as bad here. That's right. He said, when you're out on the outsides, either side, the boat is
always rocking. Yeah.
But if you're in the middle, you're at the pivot point, and it's all
That's right.
around you. And it reminds me of a line out of Rudyard Kipling's poem, If, that said, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat these two imposters both the same. Well, you got triumph over here where you're all excited and high. You got disaster over here where you're all depressed and low. But if you can live more towards the middle.
Yep.
Where you don't get too excited about the great stuff. You don't get too brought down about the difficult stuff.
Hard stuff. Yeah.
You're going to be a lot more successful as you move forward.
That's pretty good advice. Don't follow that extreme.
I don't know why I can't find us on Facebook Live.
You're not there.
Okay, there's some.
Facebook is having an issue.
Oh, okay.
With your page. I don't know why, but I'm getting you shared across.
Is it on 21.6 and that is
21.6
okay.
Net,
Good.
and you're on the YouTube live stream.
Perfect.
I'm
All right.
trying to share that out as much as I possibly can.
Thanks for hanging with us through the technical difficulties, but that's part of being live when you do this. So
absolutely. I might have had that effect when I came in.
We're not going to blame anybody here. That wouldn't be the right thing.
Oh, I got big shoulders. I could take
you
it.
shared a story with us one time when you were with us last year sometime about when you were in the service, and it was a pivotal point that something happened to you. I don't know if it was you were going to visit someone, but you said you were, or why you joined the service.
Well, that's the. I'm standing here today, or I'm sitting here today because Martin Rodert intercepted a football in 1972.
There we go. Yeah,
that's
tell
it.
that story. Well, that was kind of a neat story.
Yeah.
Everybody's life has interesting moments, and just seemed like small moments at the time. Sometimes that completely change your life.
Well, I was Arnold, Nebraska, September of 1972. I was a senior on the Sutherland football team. It was our first game of the year, and Martin Rodert intercepted a football. As he called out ball, which meant he intercepted, I needed to turn around and find somebody to block.
Mm-hmm.
But as I started turning, someone had been putting a cross body block on me, a lower body block. And as I turned into them, they went straight through my knee. And they said I'd never play football again. Now I'm from Nebraska, where we have farming and football.
And that's about it.
That is about it. And the Union Pacific Railroad. But, farming was my ticket off. Football is my ticket off the farm. And my ticket was gone, so I was frustrated. On December 9th, 1972, Todd Chesmore asked me for a ride to the United States Army Recruiter Office in North Platte, Nebraska. And I obliged. It's what we do. And while I'm sitting in the waiting area and he's signing his life away, I noticed this pamphlet. And this pamphlet said Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center is the orthopedic center of the United States Army. And I shouted out across the room. I said, "Hey, sir, can you put me here?" He said, "Son, you signed this contract. I'll put you anywhere." I signed the contract. I became a military policeman. On my first day of duty, I went up to that 5th floor to check out the orthopedic clinic. And this cute little redhead, as those elevator doors sitting up, is there in that reception window. And I thought, if I get to know her, I'll figure out which doctor fixes my knee. I got to know her, and I got to know them. They never touched my knee. And this April 11th, I'll be married to her for 45
It
years.
was your heart that got touched that day, wasn't it?
Every action we take, every decision we make has future implications.
Yes.
Now, the day before I told that story the first time, which was down at the Zig Ziglar offices in Dallas, Texas, I was in front of a PetSmart in McKinney, Texas, and this little girl sitting there having a cigarette. And I said, "Hon, you mind if I ask you a question?" She said, "No, sir." I said, "You're going to have a family someday?" And she said, "Well, yeah." I said, "You like babies?" She said, "I love babies." I said, "You're going to take your hand, shove it in through that baby's belly button, and shake it so hard she'll have a pain that will never, ever leave her the rest of her life." She said, "No, I'm not going to do that." I said, "Well, let me tell you about the pain that I carry, a pain that caused when I watched my mom die from lung cancer, a cancer that took her way too early from this life. She never got to meet her grandchildren, and her family, her parents lived well into their 80s and 90s. I said, on that day, at the age of 17, she created a pain I will carry with me the rest of my life. And I tell you today, you're creating the pain that your child, from the man you haven't even met yet, is going to have that same pain." She threw that cigarette right down. And I said, "Can I ask you what you're going to do with that pack?" And she said, "Well, I guess I'll give them to my friend. She smokes the same ones." I said, "So you're going to create all this pain for her child?"
You're going to pass that pain on.
She said, "So I guess I should throw them away." I said, "Hon, I can't tell you what to do. But I do know this: every action you take, every decision you make has future implications." Now, she throws those cigarettes away. She goes ahead and leads a healthier lifestyle. You know why that happened? Well, simple. Because Martin Rodert intercepted a football in 1972. You see, we all have that moment in our life where things changed. It can be an injury. It can be a new job. It can be a woman that you've met. It can be cancer.
Cancer diagnosis.
But things happen where our lives change. Now, the good news is it doesn't really matter, because that was a long time ago. But what does matter is what am I going to do now when I walk out of this room? How am I going to be somebody else's Martin Rodert? How can I make a difference in somebody else's life in a way that they will live a more positive, more healthy lifestyle?
Yeah.
I noticed a quote, I always go through my motivational quotes today, and I came across one that said, positive attitude isn't necessarily going to make you do anything a lot better, but it will aggravate the people around you.
Yeah, and make you feel better about it.
But I really work with everyone I find, whether they're sick, they're emotionally challenged by work or relationship, to find that positive, that immediate
Yes.
positive response that'll help get them to that next level.
And sometimes we miss opportunities because it's not quite the opportunity we were looking for. I believe God gives us opportunity every day to create goodness and kindness in this world
Without question.
with others and to be in the service of others. And it's whether or not we pick up that mantle and decide to do that or not. And I believe we're given opportunities that may seem like horrible situations at the time, but in reality, they're just preparation for what he really wants us to be doing.
Well,
and taking that time to notice that and trust in that I know this is a challenge just came into my life, but I'm going to go ahead and go at it head on.
And let me jump in here real
Please
quick
do.
for those of you who are having a hard time finding us on Facebook. For whatever reason, there is an issue with Facebook. If you are listening to us on the 21.6 app, you can do that. If you want to get involved with the conversation and see the three amigos here laughing and smiling, jump over to YouTube and you can find Not Done Yet Right Now is live. Phil Nostrino has joined us there. Hello, Phil. How are you?
Hi, Phil.
Says hi to us, as well as to Coach Papa.
hey, Phil.
So let me say thank you to some of our sponsors here, and when we come back, we'll pick up where we were, and then let's get into a little bit of time with Ron. So let's talk about everybody's favorite time of year, and one of my friends who will make it a little less painful for you, and that is mobile accounting. It's tax time. We can't hide from it. It's here. Mobile accounting, they're at 224-321-6859 or at www.mobile.tax. Experience, education, character, and an inherent ability with numbers and an exceptional CPA. These are the reasons why business owners choose Eric Mason of Mobile Accounting for their bookkeeping, payroll, and tax service. Mobile Accounting, 224-321-6859 or at www.mobile.tax. Our friends over at Prime Media Consulting, they are at 847-752-0018. Ever wonder why your website is not showing up online where you want it to be? Want to make sure you're found when someone is searching for your kind of business? Prime Media Consulting helps small business owners optimize their exposure on major search engines to transform their business. Call Prime Media Consulting today at 847-752-0018 or reach out to us at primemediaconsulting.com and learn how they can make your impression on the web. So getting back into where we were.
Where were we?
We were here.
Hi, and welcome to Not
Live in the
Done Yet.
studios.
So you were going into some of the things about your reboot program, and I know you have a lot of clients out there. So before we move on to another subject here, give us tell us who you work with, who can best be helped by what you do.
Well, Tom, what I found out is nobody comes to me on their best day. Nobody's having a really super successful day and then calls me up and say, "Hey, Tim, can you help me be better?"
Right.
Matter of fact, I was meeting with one individual here recently, and he's going through a depression, and I said, "Have you ever felt that the world would be better off without you?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then I have to make a modification to our contract." He said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, anyone who has suicidal thoughts needs to pay me 6 months in advance." He just looked at me with this like, "What?" He
Did
said,
you
"We're
really
gonna-"
say that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this and we're going to make it real. We got, you are who you are wherever you are.
Yeah.
Right. I've got this individual in the last 6 weeks he would definitely be my most improved player this year. His turnaround just by the positive stuff. And Tom, you experience this all the time. We have a 21-day program where you write down 3 new things you're grateful for each day. We call them G4s. G4 just stands for grateful for. You write down 3 new things you're grateful for each day. You write on something positive that's happened in the last 24 hours. When you write on something positive in the last 24 hours, your body relives it and you produce the dopamine that it needs. You exercise, you meditate, and you practice random acts of kindness. Those 5 things done for 21 days will start you reprogramming into a very positive manner. Now, rumor has it some people have interrupted those 21 days and get to start over
on numerous occasions from what I'm hearing.
You know, and Tom has just he was on day 15 and missed, and you're on day 3 again now.
Yes.
And I
say practice.
So if you miss a day, you got to start over.
You start over.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I had to start over 7 times before I got through the 21 days.
And in my defense, many of those days were not because I didn't do the assignment, but just I forgot to say, hey, I did the assignment.
Well, if you did the assignment, I will still accept it late.
And you would, and I'm okay with that. But, however, if I went to school and said, I forgot my homework at work, I would not, or it's at home, I would not get credit for it.
Rachel ate the homework.
Or one of the cats.
And then we have the soft reboot, which is out of Chuck Inman's book, Chemical Brain Freeze. Stop, breathe, go to your happy place. Ask yourself a question when you run into immediate challenges. Those 2 things and getting people started really make a difference. And several of my clients, now I have 2 chiropractors. I have 3 in the financial world. 2 of them happen to be with Edward Jones, which I was formerly with. I've got a coach. I've got all types of different people. One of the things that sets me apart from a lot of other coaches, they have their process, their program that worked for them. And they try to take what worked for them and shove it on you. And unless you are a perfect match on the Myers-Briggs personality survey and the DISC assessment, it's not gonna work. So what I do when I come in is find out who you are, find out how you define success, find out why you do what you do, and then we put all those things in together and you write your own plan. I don't write a plan for you, because if you've written the plan, if you've been involved in it from the beginning, then you're going to be much more likely to follow it and adhere. If I give you a plan, it's just your purpose is to make it fail. You know the actual success rate of the Tony Robbins program, and it's a great program. I mean, he's a phenomenal guy, but the actual success rate is about 3%.
I was going to say it's well less than 10%.
Right. When you look at Tony Robbins' Myers-Briggs personality survey, he's a 3%er. So what does that tell you? The people who match Tony Robbins are going to be successful in his program. But what I really want to do is I want you to find your own success. Go ahead.
No, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. We all look at life in a different way. I'm the kind of guy I always joke and say I'm so happy I make myself sick sometimes.
You make me sick too, but that's
there we go. See what I mean? My personality and my way of thinking is always going to tend to go more towards the positive. Now, whether it's just because I've trained myself to do that, or did I have a head start based on the way the chemical makeup was in my brain that allows me to think that way? What about people who tend to think in a negative way? They may be successful at what they do, but like you said, people around them are miserable because they just have a harder time turning that around.
You should be happy for my success, doggone it.
Yeah, I am. But do you approach people like that different, or do you like you said, you just kind of wait and see? I'll get that impression of that person's outlook by talking to them, like you said, you do, and asking certain questions, and then go based on their personality, because some personalities and some people's way of thinking is harder to think that way. Well, you know, it's easier for me to train myself to think positive because I'm going to lean that way anyway.
Here's, if I could, for just a
second,
second, I'm, and most of you know this, I work with people who get involved with a product that I'm involved with, and teach them how to work for themselves.
It's legal now in Illinois. It's okay.
As far as you know. And the thing that I have encountered, and I've always believed this to be true, and my mind has not yet been changed. I would be the first to say, And yes, there are people that have a somewhat negative outlook on life, but they are still successful at whatever
Right.
niche. Here's what I would subscribe to. To me, it is far more, your energy is far more consumed with a negative, a
Yeah.
jealous, a victimhood, you pick your adjective.
Yeah.
You are expending far more energy in those states of mind than to say than to use the other side of the coin. And a lot of people get this impression, well, positive attitude this and positive attitude this, and no matter what, everything's happy and smiley. No, that's not that's not what positive means at all. Positive says, all right, this is what's in my face right now. I have two choices. I can let it hit me in the face, or I can accept what it is and decide how to deal with it. That's positive.
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar calls it a plum party, PLOM party. That's poor little old me.
Right.
And it's for a party of one.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to join your poor little old me party. You drive down the road and you get cut off by this white pickup truck, and you're like, "You idiot! Why don't you learn how to drive?" And
That wasn't me.
And you
It
do
was
have a white pickup.
That was another
truck,
white
don't you?
pickup truck.
And
Could have been me. Though.
and you get to work and somebody says, "How'd you drive in this morning?" "Man, I got cut off by a white pickup truck." They said, "Did it have a cab on it?" He said, "Yeah." I said, he cut me off too, man. That guy's just crazy. And somebody else like, "Yeah, that white pickup, he cut me off too." And next thing you know, you've lost 45 minutes, an hour of your day, and he just has a bad right mirror. He didn't see it.
He didn't even see a thing, did he?
He
Not
wasn't
bothered
doing
him one
anything
bit.
on purpose. But we take everything so personally,
Yes.
as an attack on us. And anger is the most selfish of all the emotions, because we only get angry when you talked about me, you said this to me, you didn't pay me back. It's all about me.
Yeah.
When we can let go of the me, we're going to let go of a lot of that anger that has control of our life. And when we can let go of that anger, we'll be in a much more positive
Right.
state of
And
mind.
every one of those scenarios is a sense of victimhood.
Yeah.
You didn't pay me. You said bad things about me. You fired me. You called my mother. It's all about it being a victim.
Yeah.
As soon as, and that kind of relates to the cancer world. And we've talked about this. I never looked at going through cancer as I was a victim of some kind.
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way at all. I didn't ask how. I didn't ask why. It was here. It is what it is. So I have two choices. I can ask why. I can wallow in why me, poor little me. What did I do to deserve this? Poor little me. What did I do to deserve?
Uh-oh.
Or I can say, all right, things are going to get rough. Things may not become. I may not come back.
Yeah.
But I'll be darned if I'm going to be a victim.
Because not done yet.
Not done yet.
That's right.
Exactly.
Well, and let's let that. What a great segue right into Ron.
And that's
You
where we
know,
were headed. And how beautiful it is when we put a plan
certainly
together.
is. And going back to just what you had said earlier, Ron had this amazing ability. In June, I just had landed in Texas, and I'd been at my son's house for maybe 30 minutes, and the phone rang, and it was Ron. And I'm like, "How'd you know I was in town?" I didn't tell him I was coming to Texas. I hadn't texted him. As far as I know, he doesn't have a survey or a search finder on my phone. And he said, "Oh, I got my radar turned on." And he always did have that radar turned on. We laughed about it for a couple of seconds, but then he said, "I got some tough news." And he had just found out he'd just been diagnosed with liver cancer.
How long ago was this?
That was June of last year, 19.
Okay.
So it's a little over 8 months. But his radar, we would be in a store, checking out, and a poor little checkout girl, you could just see something's wrong, and he would just, before we left, he's hugging her, and she's got a big smile, or just walking across the street, he'd see somebody who was having you just see on her face.
He had that sense he could read it.
Radar was on. He was about in the 3rd month of his battle, and the doctor came in, and all the testing and the numbers had come back, and the doctor walked in with this long face and said, based on everything that we've found, this is probably about how much time you have left. He said, I looked at him and said, "You don't know me." He said, "You don't know my family. You don't know my faith. You don't know anybody about. You're about 25% of my battle. You're the technician. Your job is to keep me here just as long as you can and find out what's wrong with me. By the time his relationship with that doctor had ended, that young doctor was back in church and moving, and nurses were, and he had the opportunity to go out and speak at the NFL Hall of Fame as the president of the NFL Hall of Fame is a friend of his. And he got a private tour with his grandson, and then he got to speak to a bunch of Hall of Famers. And so he got to do some amazing things. Cancer didn't beat Ron.
Yeah.
He beat it every day right up until it took his life. But something's going to take all of our lives.
Exactly.
At the end of it.
He died while beating cancer daily.
Absolutely. You mentioned, your brother the same way.
Exactly.
And Ron was like that. He had, last time we talked, I was in Texas in January, and, I told him, if you feel up to it, I'd like to come out and visit you. And he called me and he says, Tim, I'm just not up for the visit. We have more doctor visits and everything we got to take care of. But he said, I want to know that you've really had an impact on my life. And I love you like a brother. And I said, Ron, same. And you could tell his energy were down. Our conversations weren't as long. They used to be hours.
Yeah.
It fell to minutes. But he was just this amazing individual that right in the end, his joy followed him every step of the way.
Well, when you give that joy your life, you do for others, a lot comes out of you and creates this vacuum, but good comes back into it. If you take all that negativity out of you and do something good for somebody, then something's got to replace that emptiness where that came from. And if you do the right things, goodness will come back into your life. At least the feeling of satisfaction that I did something good to help somebody else.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's a good positive feeling for yourself. No matter how many mistakes we make in our life and how many wrong things we do, we still have the opportunity on a daily basis to make good choices and good decisions, and not about ourselves. It's about what we do for others that makes us better and our lives better. Right. So, I learned to quit focusing on me so much and start focusing on other people. And then all that I really desired and wanted came into that vacuum that was created when I gave to others.
I'm sure you've experienced this, both of you, but I've been with so many cancer fighters, cancer survivors who said the thing that got them through is the pain on their family's face, that they had to be the one to pick their family up and cheer their family up. And they'd be like, hey, I'm the one fighting cancer here. Why I got to pick you up off the floor?
See it all the time at the hospital. The happiest person is the person that's fighting the cancer. Everybody else is all sad and upset. And, and I can understand that feeling of that caregivers is the hardest role in this fight. You can't reach in and tear it out like you want to do. But I don't want to say nothing. I'm not the one with cancer. Is how a lot of caregivers feel.
There are several people who shared stories about Ron, but this came from a lady named Cindy, who she said, today we celebrated the life of Ron Hostry, one of the nicest men I've ever known. Ron was generous enough to fly me to Pampa, Texas when my cousin's husband passed away. Ron was his usual self with all the jokes and puns until the weather turned extremely bad with a lot of rain, thunder, and lightning. I watched him as he became more and more serious about keeping the plane flying and on course. We hit an air pocket, and I hit my head really hard, but I held it together because of Ron's calmness. We got to the airport right when the funeral was over. Ron talked the guy into loaning us an old police cruiser because the town didn't have a taxi service. An Uber hadn't been thought of. Everyone I knew was at the funeral. Ron had on shorts and had turned very cold. I knew he was cold, but he held the umbrella for me so I wouldn't get wet. Yet he got drenched. We left shortly after the service, and due to a brief break in the weather. It was not fast enough, however, as we got back into that storm again and had to fly a long way out of the way. He told me I better not drink much as it would be difficult to stop for the restroom. We laughed a lot about that. We had quite the adventure that day. I'll never forget this wonderful man of God. We love you, Ron and Joan Hostry, and thank you for the memories. And, the story after story after story about Ron. His East Texas wisdom, his Rancher Ron stories. In the beginning, our lead-in was Green Acres is a place to be. Farm living is a life for me. Because he was a mayor of Tuscan, California. He was a mattress manufacturing owner. He had not been on a ranch. He didn't have any clue about ranching. And in his late 50s, early 60s, he bought a piece of property in Greenville, Texas, and became a rancher. And he was a doggone good one. I mean, I was out on the farm several times, or the ranch several times, about 180 acres. He'd have between 20 and 40 head of Black Angus cattle. And my daughter and 3 of her children were along for the ride one time, and Ron would take this trailer and hook it up behind the tractor, and take us out to feed the cattle. Yeah. Well, being a farm boy myself, I knew some things about cattle that Ron didn't know, and one of them, he had poured their trough and full of food, and they're eating them. I said, Ron, I bet I can make those cattle leave their food. He goes, oh, those cattle don't leave their food for anything. I said, Kaylin, my granddaughter, is quite a singer. And I said, Kaylin, I want you to stand up on the edge of the trailer there and start singing. She goes, what do you want me to sing? I said, let's go with Amazing Grace. So she started belting out Amazing Grace, and every one of those cattle left the feed trough and came over and gathered around that trailer, to the point she started getting nervous, because these aren't pet cattle. These are range cattle. But music draws the cattle in. We milked cows by hand growing up, and my dad was a singer, and anytime the weather was bad or something was going on, he'd just start singing, and the cows would just calm right down. Well, they all came over, and he looked at me and he said, I never would have believed that if you would have told me. And I said, most people won't. But then he said after that, he used them for his practicing his speeches. So if he had a speech coming up, he'd go down and he'd set the trailer up, and he'd start talking and singing, and the cattle would all
start gathering.
And they had 20 years ago. And
just when the cattle started throwing stuff at you, you knew your speech needed work.
Well, if they turned around and the tails went up,
right,
you knew there was a problem about to happen.
Exactly.
He was literally singing till the cows came home.
Right.
Especially if it was the bull.
Right. Right. So yeah, in that vein of conversations with Ron, the last conversation I had with him, I called him up a month or 2 after I'd heard the news, and typical of Ron, like I say, I had met him and had coffee with him. I want to say it was 2016. It was before I got sick with cancer, and man, talk about a great conversation. And what was great about it was not only the content, but just the delivery and the way he spoke, and the way you could just listen and hear in his intonation the pure joy of living, and especially flying. Well, you got him talking about flying.
Oh, he loved, yeah.
So anyway, I spoke with him last, like I say, a month or 2 after he was diagnosed, and typical of Ron, he's explaining to me what's going on, and you could tell there was some concern. Is anytime you hear that cancer word, there's concern. But how he went from that concern to, this doesn't have me, I have it. Yeah. He's like, the doctor and I may have disagreed early on. He said, but what I told him was, I can't wait to figure out how we're going to get rid of this. And that was the approach he took.
Yeah. Even there, he had positivity to what he had to do. You can't look at, like I said, no matter how negative something seems, we don't know the purpose of it or the outcome. And you have to keep, I've never heard anybody who was told they had cancer say, oh, devil, please save me. They always turn to that.
And you never hear, oh, I do? Finally.
Well, I knew it was going to happen, doggone it.
And I'm sure faith probably had something to do with, has a lot to do with it. I call it crying uncle. Sometimes you just realize in life that there's certain things in life that I can't overcome on my own. And I've got to rely on my faith to get me through this. Sure. Because we have a tendency to think of this as home, the final place, and it's not. Any of us that have a faith realize that. And so I try not to let the concerns of this world get to me too much in that sense, and just try to focus on the people that are in my life and try to be the best that I can to those people. If this was the last day I interacted with somebody, how would I want that day have gone? With regret or a good memory for whoever one of us is still here?
Right.
And you don't dwell on it. You just learn to condition yourself to act like that was my last day. Mm-hmm. And how would I wanted this to be? Not fighting and arguing with somebody, but having a good conversation that left a good memory with that person. I think just doing that on a daily basis, trying to do that, in the end, we all end up with regrets and memories. And depending on how we treated ourselves and others will determine that balance.
Sure.
Well, I'm closing in on 65 real quick here. And I've got a couple more years of coaching left in me. And I've got a couple of young coaches I'm preparing to take over the coaching. When one of my assistants sent me this text this morning, it said, an 87-year-old coach's journey to 3,912 wins over 66 years. And when, are you kidding me? I thought I had 1 or 2 years left. That means I have like 22
Plenty of
years
years.
left. Come on. And,
Like I told you, I'm enjoying this once a man, twice a child thing.
I get, so excited about this when someone comes, one of the mistakes we make, and you guys can agree with this, is that when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, people run away like it's leprosy.
Yeah.
And not only on purpose, most of the time they don't know what to say.
Right.
They
They
don't
don't
know
know how to
approach
react.
it. They
It's the
don't know
fear of
how-
that word, cancer, that almost
Right.
like paralyzes them.
Yeah, if I touch it, am I going to
Yeah.
get it? I get concerned about the coronavirus. I had an issue with corona not long ago. Every time I'd finish one, another one would open up.
As long as you got coronavirus with Lyme disease, you should be fine.
But this is something we're going to fix. This, it's a problem. It's raised its head,
Right.
and now we're going to fix it. I was talking with Joe after you left the Hidden Pearl this morning,
Mhm.
and one of the things he said I didn't realize is he's in the Klatchke business, and all of his stuff comes from China. Well, it's all shut off.
Yeah.
Right? All of
Yes,
his
right now.
products and everything are shut off because they can't ship it over here because they don't know for sure yet how this virus is passed.
Yeah.
And it's the long-reaching effects of a disease like that. Well, sometimes we treat cancer like that. Don't sneeze on me.
Yeah.
Well, unless you've smoked for 35 years, that sneeze isn't going to give
Ain't
you
gonna
cancer.
bother Like I said, I think sometimes it's just the fear of that word, and that hurts sometimes when people don't do what you thought they would. And of course, other people who you didn't even think of step up and do things that
Yeah.
you didn't imagine they would
Absolutely.
even think of doing.
Right. And that's kind of the part and parcel of expectations is we have expectations about how somebody's going to react.
Right.
Now, whether those are accurate or not, those are the ones that we're placing on them.
Yeah.
And then the flip side of it is, like you just got done saying, some people you didn't expect to do this, other people came out of left field. You're like, I didn't
Yes.
expect that. And largely it's because of the expectations we've placed on them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I tell people, don't be upset that somebody didn't call you or didn't come see you. Imagine being a person where the mention of that word was so paralyzing and fearful to you that it paralyzed you to do nothing.
Sure.
Not pick up the phone, not come by. And the best thing you can do is pray for those people that they overcome that fear.
And I think the vast majority of them, at least this is how I sleep at night when I think of these things. It's not that they're not interested in being there for you or hearing from you. They don't know what to say to ease your pain.
Right.
And that's their concern.
Yeah.
I can't do anything, so I'm just going to do nothing. Some people,
They
other
don't want to
people
say
are
the wrong thing. They
Yes,
don't want to. They don't know how to react. There's so many variables.
Yeah.
And all of us are built differently in terms of what we, how we react, and how we manifest that reaction. That to have a certain expectation sometimes doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. Cancer is a extremely learning experience if you allow it to be and learn from it. It lets you re-examine yourself. I can remember sitting when I realized, okay, it looks like I'm going to live past this right now. Is this what I want to do now?
Oh no, now I'm going to
Even
be
in relationships, is this what I want to do? Do I want to spend my time with this person? I know I may have spent 20 or something with them, but do I want to spend another 20 with them?
Yeah.
It makes you stop and think about things and puts it in perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great that you self-examine yourself daily, like you said, and write down things that are positive. And like Tom said, people think, oh, that's just positive thinking. That's just a bunch of bull. It's not. It determines the quality of your day, how you think, and those around you. And I'd rather be thinking in a positive manner than at the end of the day go, well, there's another sucky day that went by.
Well, one of the things I heard a speaker say, and I hope I can figure out who it was so I can give credit to the guy, but he said, nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, I really want to suck today. I want to be the biggest idiot I can possibly be today. I want to be a jerk. I want to drive people off the road. It may seem like some people think that, but they're doing the best they can with the
Yeah.
tools that they have.
Right.
One of my clients has made some amazing changes following this process. And then about 2 weeks ago, I watched him start filtering off. He stopped sending me at day 26, that you do it.
Sure.
And then I walked into a meeting he was in, and he looked at me, and I could see the fear in his eyes again. And we went out, we sat down and talked. I said, you stop doing what works. Einstein is often credit with the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
But what I tell my clients is insanity is doing something that works and not doing it again. And you get into a process, you get into a therapy that's working, and then you're going to go, well, that one's working, so let's try something else.
Yeah,
No,
no.
you're going to stay with
Stick
what
with it.
works. Yeah. And in life, when we find something that works for us, we need to go. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need to step out of the box or tweak it or find it. Is there a way that we can get better or stronger at it? Because it's those little mistakes that help us get better and stronger.
Continually evolve.
All the time. Yeah. And that was one thing about Ron. He continued to evolve and grow. He wrote a book called I Did Not Plan That.
Right.
And he was planning to write a book about his cancer journey called I Didn't Plan That Either.
Right.
I have not had a chance to talk to Joni to see if he put together notes, because I told him if he had the notes together, I would help him put it together. What Deke and I have decided, Kent Jones, is that we're going to go back into all the shows, start dating back to 101.5,
The Harvard days.
101.3,
Yep.
our Harvard days, WHIW. And we're going to bring out all the East Texas wisdom, and we're going to put them all on one flash drive, and all those memories, because the wisdom that is in those segments are just phenomenal. So we should have that ready in a month and a half.
It always amazes me how simple those thoughts are, the ones that really make the most sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
How easy they are to do. Treat people nice today. When you wake up, reach over. That person that you love, are they still there? Yeah. Are they still warm? It's going to be a good day. Every morning I wake up, I reach over for my wife. Yeah. Okay. She's there. Yeah. Is she warm? Yep. She's still warm. It's a good day.
There was a book several years ago, maybe as far back as the 80s, called Everything I Needed to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten.
That's right.
And it was a series of short essays. The actual essay on Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten was only 2 or 3 pages long, but it talked about, hold hands when you cross the street, take a nap in the morning, have a snack between your meals, stay healthy, be kind to one another. And when we'll just stop and realize nobody is born an idiot, nobody is born a jerk, nobody is born a racist. These are all things that we learn. Nobody is born with a negative attitude or a positive attitude. These are the things we learn. And when we watch way too much news like we do in this country, we have a tendency to go down the wrong path. We're getting into the last couple
We
of
are,
minutes.
yes, I was about to say we have about gotten to our expiration time frame here.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet, but we're going to be done for this week shortly. So what I'd like to do, I want to turn it right back over to you, Coach. Any final words about Ron? The thing I would like to close with, Ron, you keep flying, my friend.
Amen. The Flying Double H, humor and humility. His ranch was the Flying Double H Ranch. But, the one thing I'd have to say is I met Ron through the Zig Ziglar offices. I went out there to find a more positive spot in life, and it brought me right straight to Ron Hostry. And that friendship developed over an hour and a half phone call. I just called to introduce myself. An hour and a half later, we hung up. Just as grew and blossomed into today, Peter and Kent are the two majors involved in 21/6 the net, but Ron was instrumental in making that happen and just continuing to make the change. So everything positive that comes out of there has his signature all over it. So, Ron, you're an amazing guy. I considered you a brother, not just in Christ, but a brother in life and love. And I just, I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to have you in my life. They say everybody comes into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And the only one who's with you your entire life is you. Everybody else, there's a limited time we have together. So we need to make sure that we take advantage of that in a way that is, says one of the, I had a nephew that committed suicide, And it was a very difficult time for my sister and for us. And we needed to get out to Denver, and we just didn't have the liquid funds available. Ron had so many miles on Southwest Airlines that he called us. He used his mileage to get my wife and I out for this funeral, to take care of, to be with my sister in this very, difficult time in her life. He was just that guy. He was that guy who would be there, whatever you needed. If he had it, it was yours.
Right.
And I was just blessed to be able to be part of his life.
So be like Ron, practice kindness. If you do that, you get good at recognizing the opportunity to be kind.
All right. We want to thank Coach Papa for being here as our guest today and having a little time to think about our friend Ron Hostry. We want to thank everybody who's joined us. We apologize for the technical issues. We'll see if we can't get those figured out, but keep this in mind. We have enough outlets. If you can't find us in one spot, you certainly can find us in one of the other 50.
It's modern technology making life easier.
You have to not want to not find us to not find us.
Exactly. Exactly. So until next week, folks, keep up doing what you're doing. If you're in the battle, keep the battle. If you know somebody who is, help them, because we're not done yet.
Yep.
We'll see you next week.
Not done yet.
Bye, guys.
Peace, love, and happiness.